purpose itself does not equal a certain job. And I say that because you can be on purpose and you can do all sorts of different careers. And so whereas we tend to think that purpose takes us into this very distinct place, it actually does the opposite. It's actually really expansive and it takes us out into this bigger area that we have to play in. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Life by Your Design podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Boyd. I'm a master hypnotist, human design reader, and I'm here to help you play with convention, tap into your purpose, and live life by your design. Hello, we are back. This is my first episode on the Life by Your Design podcast in about 2.5 years. If you were one of my listeners previously, you probably wondered where I went to. In all honesty, it was just a lot producing a podcast, and I decided that I needed to take a pause and find a more sustainable way of doing it, especially as I am a projector and I have limited energy to run my business. More about being a projector on another episode. But I loved it and I was wanting to get back to it quicker than I did, and I ended up being away for 2.5 years. But here we are, and this first episode, I want to talk about purpose. So if you find yourself in a place where you are looking to explore your purpose, or perhaps you have been doing it for a while and you're feeling a bit stuck, then hopefully this episode will be really useful for you. Now, when it comes to purpose, it's something that I've been talking about for a long time, and it's something that is the core of actually what I offer and work with in my business. But I also wanted to kick off with an episode on purpose because I did a solo episode on this topic, and I think it was something like episode 6 previously. And of all the solo episodes that I did, it was the one that I got the most messages from. I got so many people messaging me, and the general theme of them, and I remember one of the messages quite distinctively, this particular person said, "I've just listened to your podcast and I feel like I can exhale." And this for me really speaks to a lot of the reason why I do the work I do in the purpose space, because I feel like we have created so much dogma around purpose. It's become really, in vogue to discover your purpose. You hear lots of people talking about it. If you tap into the personal development world, whether that's podcasts and courses or coaches, it's a big theme. It comes up a lot. And in the business space, we're increasingly hearing businesses talk more and more about purpose. So it's there. It's something that people believe that they should have a sense of what their purpose is. And on that original podcast, a lot of my message there was, if you don't know what your purpose is, if you're not clear on it, it doesn't mean you're lost. It doesn't mean that you're missing something. It kind of just means that you're human. And in fact, when you talk to the majority of people, most people can't tell you what their purpose is. And that's totally, totally cool. The other reason why purpose is obviously a big thing for me and in my business is that I've been on this personal journey of finding purpose for myself. And I walked away from my career over 5 years ago now because I had this deep sense that I was off purpose. And for me, the way that manifested and the way that felt was that I felt like I was essentially dragging my ass into work and through my days. And even though on the surface, if you looked at my life, it was fantastic. I mean, it had all of these wonderful things in it. I had a great job and fabulous friends, and I lived in Bondi Beach, and, I spent my time off work doing wonderful things. And literally, life on paper was fantastic. But behind the scenes, to be honest, I was absolutely miserable, dragging myself through it. And I had this kind of prevailing sense of there's got to be more. And I'm convinced I'm here for more. No idea what it is, but this can't possibly be it. And so, I've been on that journey for a while. I left that career 5 years ago, but this first started over a decade ago when I was in London. And it kind of got kicked off on a trip to India. And it was one of the reasons that I left the UK and moved to Australia to kind of start a new life, because I knew something was not quite right. And then I've actually been talking about purpose on a professional level for sort of over 15 years. I've crafted purpose statements for a number of organizations, from big global businesses and ASX businesses through to entrepreneurs, and spoken a lot about how you create purpose statements and then you activate those through your people. So purpose is just something that, I've spoken about a lot, but we've reached this point where I believe there is too much dogma around the concept of purpose. And so a lot of the work I do is around removing that and around doing it in such a way that you will be able to kind of tap into that sense of purpose, whatever you're doing. So it might mean that you want to walk away from a career and do something completely different. It might mean that you want to start a business, or you want to keep working for someone, or it might be staying exactly where you are as far as work and actually just connecting your sense of purpose as a thread through the life that you already have with maybe just some of the smallest nuances and changes that allow you to really enhance and feel purpose. And I also believe really strongly that every single human being has purpose, and every single human being has the right and is able to connect to that purpose. And if you're feeling a bit stuck, then in all honesty, it's probably because you're approaching it in a very head-based and quite kind of deductive way. So what I'd like to do is move you out of that place. And one of the problems that we have with purpose in our world is that we kind of make this attachment to success, to purpose, is very much around achievement and acquisition. So we are told you will achieve all these things in life and you will feel good. And once you've achieved stuff and you've earned more money, then you can acquire more of these things. And very often, this is kind of the place that my clients come to me from. And when people kind of say, well, who do you work with when it comes to the purpose work? They're often very successful people. They're people from all walks of life, but they're all successful in their own way. And they've all kind of done all the stuff that they were told would make them happy. Whether that's, becoming educated or training in some way, working their way up the ladder in work, progressively earning more money, becoming more senior. Maybe they bought a home, maybe they haven't bought a home, but they've, acquired various things. They've got married or they haven't got married, but they're kind of ticking off all of the stuff that we're told that would make them happy. And then a lot of them kind of sit back, and I say them, but I'm also talking about myself, sit back and wait a minute, I kind of did all this stuff and I'm actually not that happy. And there's something missing. And it's often that there's something missing which really kind of kicks off this journey of starting to do a little bit more self-inquiry around, why am I here? Am I spending my time in a way that I'm going to look back on at the end of my life and feel really, really good about? Am I contributing? Am I actually really using my gifts and the talents that I have? Or am I kind of just moving through day by day, week by week, month by month with an element of autopilot? And very often, if we're honest, high stress. That is very much where this conversation tends to come from. So with that being said, if you are sitting there nodding away, going, yep, that's me, I have that feeling, then here are a few things that I want to share with you about how I see purpose and how I don't see purpose, which will hopefully reframe it from you and give you a slightly different place for you to continue to explore purpose in your world and your life. And one thing I would always say is this is kind of what comes from me. And if it works for you and you love it, totally take it. And if you listen to it and you're like, nah, that just doesn't quite resonate with me, then leave it, put it to one side, maybe come back to it later. But if it doesn't work for you, just let it go. So the first thing that I'd like to say is that purpose does not equal a job or a career. Now, one of the reasons very often that people start looking for their purpose is because they are unhappy in a job or a career. It's very often the trigger. it was the trigger for me. So it's not a surprise. And so if you go, what do I want as a really tangible outcome of me kind of connecting to my purpose? It very often is, I would like to do something else for my source of income. The thing that I generally spend the majority of my waking hours thinking about, even though I don't necessarily want to be. So we want to find purpose because we want to change our job. And the reality is that very often when you do connect to purpose, then you do want to do something different because you want to spend your time in a different way, in a slightly more purposeful way. But purpose itself does not equal a certain job. And I say that because you can be on purpose and you can do all sorts of different jobs, all sorts of different careers. And so whereas we tend to think purpose takes us into a place like this, and if you're listening to this without the video, you can't see what my hands are doing, but essentially they're coming together into a point. Whereas we tend to think that purpose takes us into this very distinct place, it actually does the opposite. It's actually really expansive and it takes us out into this bigger area that we have to play in. So, yep, you might find that you want to change your career or your job, but discovering purpose doesn't say, oh, you should be an architect. It doesn't take you down to that level. And one of the things about that's really exciting is that you can be on purpose and you can have huge variety and that you can go through different seasons and phases of your life and do different stuff, but still feel very much on purpose, which I think is actually a bit more exciting than feeling like finding purpose takes you to this one place. And then that's just kind of where you've got to be, because if you go and do anything different, then you find yourself off of purpose. So kind of building on that, in the same way of talking about the fact that it's not something that's deductive, it's actually something that's quite expansive, is that your purpose is not a tagline. So I know in business, purpose statements are these really tight, little statements. And, I think, for example, Google's purpose statement is something like, to organize the world's information. And I used to write these for a living, so I'm very familiar with, how to construct a purpose statement. But that's not what you need as a human being. You're not a business, and you do not need to deduct your why you exist and what you're here to contribute down into sort of 8 to 10 words. Absolutely not. And I think this is one of the things that gets people really stuck, actually, because you almost want to be able to take it down into that place. And look, there are some people in this world who may well be able to take what they do down into a purpose statement. They might be able to say, I am here to protect the world's oceans, for argument's sake. But most of us, absolutely not. And I can tell you that only recently I have started to pull mine down into a statement. And as I said, I used to do this for a living, so it's something that I know very well how to do. But I've felt on purpose for a few years, and having it down in a statement has not been important for me at all. And we also need to understand that if we create a business, and a lot of our businesses have a lot of us in them, so we may well create a purpose statement for our business because absolutely that has a place. But as a human being, we do not need to have a purpose statement. It is not that deductive. It's much, much more expansive. The third thing that I would like you to know about purpose is that it is not so much a knowing as it is a feeling. And this is the thing, right? You feel when you are not on purpose, and you feel when you are on purpose. And what that feeling looks like is not necessarily the same for everybody. For me, the sense of feeling on purpose, it's a peacefulness. It's a kind of just rightness. And it's just this sense deep inside myself of being on the right path. And that holds really true even when some of the stuff I'm dealing with on the outside is a bit tricky. So it's really, really a sense of feeling, and it's less about knowing. And one of the reasons that people get a bit stuck is because they're very much in knowing. So what I mean by that is they're trying to work it out from their head. They want something neat that they can understand, and they're trying to turn it into something that is very rational and logical for the mind, as opposed to tapping in to how they feel. And this is the thing with it, is that if you actually follow the feeling, and this doesn't mean avoiding stuff that's uncomfortable, but if you follow that kind of inner feeling, you can get yourself on purpose without necessarily having something that makes an awful lot of sense to your conscious mind. And it's the conscious mind, that very small part of your mind, which is actually trying to box you into this deductive, clear little space of purpose that's nice and neat. And that when somebody asks you about it, or when you want to create an Instagram post, boom, you can talk really clearly about what your purpose is. Actually, your purpose is there in the subconscious, which is the body, that place, and it's something that you feel much, much more than you actually know. And so if you're a bit stuck in this area, one of the key ways that you can do that is get out of the conscious, into the subconscious, getting into the body, and that's where you can start to explore it. And one of the things that I use with clients is human design. And human design is essentially your energetic blueprint. So it's not your personality, it's not your psychology, but it's actually how you communicate with the quantum, how you take in information and opportunities, how you process them, how energy moves through your system. And it also talks to the themes of your lives, the gifts that you have, and some of the shadow expressions that you will be moving through in this lifetime. And your purpose sits in that chart. And when we talk about human design, the key thing with it is it's not something that you're trying to know and understand with your head. It's something that you're actually living and you're experimenting with, and you're effectively running it through your body. Because again, it's about the feeling and it's not so much about the knowing. And if you are interested in your human design, you can get your human design body graph for free off my website. You just need to go to michelleboyd.com/human design chart. That'll be in the show notes. And all you need to do is pop in your date of birth, your time of birth, and your place of birth, and stick in your email, and it will pop out a chart, and you'll be sent a number of free videos for you to start to understand some of the stuff that sits in your chart. So with that in mind, if I've spoken about some of the stuff that purpose is not, i.e. it's not a job, it's not a career, it's not some neatly crafted statement, okay then, what is purpose? Well, yeah, it's definitely a feeling. Gosh, that feels a bit intangible, doesn't it? But if we make it a little bit more tangible, for me, and this is what I work with people, is purpose. It's the way that you move through your life. And what you will find is that there are certain themes in your life. There are certain gifts that you have in your life. And when you start to bring these to the surface, you start to notice that there are patterns to where you are feeling on purpose. And I can tell you that if I'm really black and white, I would have gone previously in my old job, I wasn't on purpose. In my current business and my life now, I'm on purpose. That is way too crude and black and white. Because what I've discovered as I've really started to work with my human design and notice my gifts and notice the themes of what actually I bring through is that, you know what? There have been plenty of moments in the old job. There's many more moments in the current business and the way that I live now. But there's lots of moments where I move into purpose and out of purpose. Now I'm much more on purpose, so much more of the time. But those themes and those gifts and those ways that I contribute, and when I really light up and I bring something to the space that I'm in, that's happened in the past in many different places. And so purpose is really about the feeling that you get. It's the path that you're on. It's the way that you move through the world, the gifts that you bring through, and the way that you contribute. And it's almost like this beautiful recipe of these elements that has you in this place where you just know you feel deeply that you are on purpose, even if you don't as yet are able to really articulate that into something really neat and really, really tight. And so that's some other ways for you to start to think about purpose. So my advice would be, if you have been a bit stuck, is I would absolutely put down looking at purpose from the point of view of a new job. I believe very strongly that will flow once you start to tap into purpose. But if you are doing an exercise in purpose to hope that another job pops out the other side or a new career, you're making it really, really difficult for yourself. Equally, if you are trying to turn it into some neat statement, something that makes you feel like you've definitely ticked off working out your purpose, put that to one side. That's not something that you need to do at all. What I want you to do is start to really tap into the moments when you feel more purposeful. Notice what is going on and don't get so stuck in the head and the knowing and the understanding. And finally, I suggest that you start to look at your human design, because in that design are your gifts. It shows you how you move through the world. It shows you what you're here to do. It shows you how you're going to do it. It's all in there for you to see, but it's not as literal as telling you that you're an architect or you're here to design beautiful spaces. It's something hugely expansive. And so it's a super, super exciting journey for you to go on. And if you're here for some of the following episodes, what I will be doing is sharing with you guests who are living their design, who are doing really cool things, who have just decided to go off and build purposeful businesses, follow their passions, do all sorts of stuff. And you'll get a sense for how some of that runs through their design. I'm also going to be sharing with you episodes specifically on human design, so you can start to really get to know your design and lots of the other factors and considerations that are important if you are designing life from your design. So tune in for those. As I've mentioned, I would absolutely grab your human design chart from my website, michelleboyd.com/human design chart. And if you're really interested to find out a bit more about it, you can always book in for a human design read with me. You can do that on the website as well. And also the Purpose Pathway is launching shortly, which is the community membership where you can explore your purpose with a whole bunch of other people who are on a similar journey. So it's been great to be back with you. I am excited that I'll be back with you every Tuesday. If you have any thoughts, any comments, any questions, please do reach out to me. The best place for you to do that would be on my Instagram, and that is michelleboyd_hypnotist. So come follow me, send me a message. If there's something that you want to see on the podcast, you can do that as well. Okay, I am wishing you all a fantastic week, and I will see you next week